This is the Coach's Corner podcast, hosted by Cody Rourke. Sports, debates, and the unfiltered truth. Alrighty, welcome back to Predominantly Orange. We are here, got a name change going on now for the show. For people that are not aware, we are going to the Predominantly Orange podcast, changing it over from the Coach's Corner podcast. No longer will it just be me doing the show, covering the Denver Broncos every week. We're going to have the crew. We're going to have the Predominantly Orange staff members here on the radio show, live every day. Every day we can, every chance we get, we're going to be live on here, and you can catch us on iHeartRadio. We're there. We're pretty big there, iHeartRadio. Catch us on iTunes, and obviously here at Spreaker, where we do our studio show live. In just a few moments, I'm going to be joined by Stephen Kriz, joint staff member over at Predominantly Orange. He was at Denver Broncos training camp today, and I'm excited. He was there. He had a lot of great coverage. You can go over there to Twitter and follow him at SCrizPO. A lot of great work by him over there. And Cameron Parker, obviously, this week. He was there this past weekend over at training camp to watch the Broncos on first day of pads on Sunday and Saturday when the storm clouds were rolling in. So Denver Broncos training camp off to a start this past week. You know, some injuries, obviously, we talked about on the previous show. We had some injuries to Shane Ray, who tore a ligament in his hand, had to have surgery on. Obviously, Devontae Booker, a hand injury as well. You wonder what it is with hands, and obviously having to have surgery on him with the Denver Broncos is crazy. Crazy. Derek Wolfe today suffered a stinger in practice. Guys are starting to get banged up a little bit because I think the adjustment period that we talk about, from being in the offseason, obviously getting strength and conditioning done in the offseason, doing some OTAs, and then actually stepping onto the field where it's competitive and it's contact and it's physical and it's constant. The grind is a little different, so I think it may be bodies getting used to that element all over again. But, the more I look at it, the more I think about it, there are a lot of different things that play into, obviously, the preparation process of football, and not a lot of people really understand the X's and O's behind the preparation, the scheme of things, which is why I'm glad I can bring that angle to you guys here as a football coach myself. There's a lot that goes on, more so than what we just see out there. A lot of it is, you've got coaches and them discussing personnel and how personnel is going to rotate in and things like that. So before we talk a little bit about that, obviously we're going to cover today's training camp notes as well as that. But right now I'm going to be joined here very shortly by my man Stephen Kriz, who was member over at Predominantly Orange, writer as well. He's going to be on air in just a few moments to talk Broncos and training camp. So at any moment I'm going to patch Stephen in onto the show live. Denver Broncos training camp. It is Monday. Practice concluded for now. The Denver Broncos will be off tomorrow. But we got the main man, the legend, Stephen Kriz, here on Predominantly Orange podcast right now. Stephen, how's it going, man?
Good, you.
Good. Hey, I was just announcing you over air. We're live right now on Twitter, on Spreaker, on iHeartRadio, on iTunes. We're all there. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome, my man. So we were just talking about, I was breaking down, some of the things we're going to talk about, obviously, with training camp today. But, I let viewers know that you were there today for training camp. And obviously, you got a lot of great notes, got a lot of great sites that you saw today. So I'm gonna kind of go down, kind of some key notes right before I dive into your analysis. But obviously, for those of you listening out there on Twitter, iHeartRadio, whatever, today at Denver Broncos training camp, obviously Ronald Leary, Broncos guard, sat out with a groin injury. It's not said to be serious, but it's just more precautionary, keeping guys healthy right now, especially as we approach the first week of preseason. And obviously Garrett Bowles at tackle has been having a very consistent camp. From what I've been hearing, he's been one of the most standout players out of all the rookies and even some of the veterans too. So it's almost a certain that maybe Garrett Bowles locks up that left tackle spot. But Steven, what are you noticing out of the Broncos' offensive line so far since being at training camp?
Guys, they look a lot better.
A lot.
It's been a lot better, especially in the run game. These guys aren't just getting pushed back; they're doing some pushing themselves. And today, especially the right side, even without Leary, opened some good holes. D'Angelo Henderson broke a good one. Juwan Thompson's had a couple good runs. CJ obviously looks good. And, it's really been all, I think, because of the line. Doing a lot better than they have been.
Do you think it may be a transition? Last year, obviously, with the Denver Broncos under Gary Kubiak, it was more of a zone blocking scheme where under Mike McCoy, there is some zone blocking, but a lot of it is also winning your matchup. It could be a man-to-man matchup as well, with double teaming down to the base of a tackle and then getting up to the next level at the linebackers. Has that looked a little more efficient this year?
Well, absolutely. I think it's a much simpler scheme for these guys, especially a lot of them being young guys. It's just block the man in front of you. You're blocking down, you're blocking out, but block the man in front of you, not so much passing off blocks like you saw last year. So I think that helps guys, especially like Max Garcia. I didn't notice anything great he did, but I didn't really notice anything bad either. So I guess that was a good thing as well.
Obviously, too, the Denver Broncos, he was cleared medically, but he hasn't been practicing much. Matt Paradise, who have they had at center working in with the offensive line while he still acclimates himself with getting back into the grind?
Connor McGovern's been taking all the team snaps. Paradise has been doing some he was in there with the starters doing drills, but once they go to live contact, it's been all Connor McGovern there with the first team. And he's looked fine. Haven't seen anything noticeable there that would cause for any concern. So that's a good thing that if Paradis hips don't hold up, we got somebody out there that's big and physical and keeps picking that job real well.
Speaking of, the offensive line and blocking, from what I was reading today, Andy Yanovich played a very big role in also setting up the run with the offensive line. How has he looked? Many people were questioning coming into this season with Mike McCoy's offense, would there be a need for a fullback like Andy Yanovich compared to a Gary Kubiak offense? But with Andy Yanovich, he's such a versatile player that we saw last year. He was so pivotal in opening up the run, and when he got injured, that's when the running game started to diminish. What does he look like in camp?
Well, guys, I'm going to be honest, I haven't noticed a whole heck of a lot of him, but I have seen him out there, which is a good thing. McCoy's going to figure out how to use him. When he was here in 2012, we had the baby Gronkowski was the fullback here. So it's not like, we basically got rid of that position once McCoy went to San Diego. And then you look at last year with the Chargers, they had the baby Watt, Derek Watt there, I believe, playing fullback. So he's going to have a position for Yanovich. And probably going to see him actually be used more in the passing game as well than he was a year ago, because he is such a versatile player. And he's just a good player to have on the team. There's no doubt he's going to have this team.
Brock Oliver was just doing his press conference at the end of practice with staff, and he mentioned that he's going to play a huge role on special teams, Yanovich is. So, I'd almost be guaranteed to make sure that he's probably a lock for the 53-man roster heading into September. His ability on special teams, I feel like, will be very valuable. Going from that I formation power from a pro set too, I think a lot of what people were concerned about regarding Andy Yanovich is, well, he's not going to really be needed in a shotgun formation, obviously with a quarterback and a tailback offset. So when we look at it, I remember against the San Diego Chargers last year on Thursday Night Football, T.J. Watt had a huge catch and run on us on the defense, and it was for about 54 yards, if I'm not mistaken. So Mike McCoy knows how to utilize some of these guys, and we saw Andy Yanovich. He only had 4 carries last season, which blows my mind because week 1 he had the 1 carry for a 26-yard touchdown against the Carolina Panthers on Thursday Night Football, and then he didn't really see much carries after that. He set up the run for the tailbacks, but we saw him more so in a receiving role out of the backfield, especially against the New Orleans Saints where he had the one-handed grab for about 13, 14 yards. So he definitely is a guy that can be utilized quite a bit, so I look forward to seeing how he looks there. You mentioned on the runnings front, obviously D'Angelo Henderson got some reps with the ones today alongside C.J. Anderson. How was the rookie looked? Obviously playing with the ones.
Yeah, he's fast.
Very.
Kid looks great, to be honest with you. I didn't expect a whole lot out of him, especially not year one, but this guy could be the surprise of camp. The first team drill they did, you got D'Angelo Henderson. You got C.J. Anderson taking one rep, and then it's D'Angelo Henderson the rest of the drills with the ones. And I thought that was very telling. Guy ran over Talib today. Absolutely trucked him.
I read about that. I read about that. And so when you mentioned that, obviously he got some run with the ones. Obviously with Devontae Booker's injury, when you look at all this stuff, you have some of these young guys. It's the perfect opportunity for some of these guys to make a name for themselves. Obviously the Broncos are easing Jamal Charles into the rotation. He's perfectly fine. He's perfectly clear. But they want to ease him in as a precautious thing to not wear him down a little early. I think the Broncos' depth at tailback gives them the ability to keep guys like C.J. Anderson, Jamal Charles fresh. And from what I'm hearing, Juwan Thompson's not having a bad training camp as well. He looks a little slimmer, but still explosive and big. What are your thoughts on Juwan Thompson?
He's gotten a lot of burn. And, it's funny. It's really hard to tell here at camp. Because they're not taking him to the ground. They're not, it's not live action, even though they have the pads on now. But every time a running back catches the ball, it looks like he's going for a touchdown, so the crowd's oohing and awing. But, in reality, it's really hard to tell. But, he ripped off a big run today. His first touch I saw him, he ripped off a big run, which looked like just a massive hole that the offensive line opened up for him. So that was a real good sight to see. And he's had some of that. He's had some good bursts, and he looks good. But Juwan's always looked good.
Oh, yeah.
I've always kind of questioned why he hasn't gotten as much burn as he maybe should have going back to his rookie year.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite players, coming out because he was very impressive when he ran the ball. He ran low, his pad level was low, and he was hard to tackle. And he had a lot of games where he showed some flashes, but I don't think he fully got a chance to actually be in a game and run consistently like you see some of these guys. I don't even think he's received 10 carries in a game yet. So the Broncos have options at tailback, obviously, and if I feel like they may have to make a decision with one of these guys, in terms of being on the practice squad or having to cut them. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the business, which is rough. But
absolutely. And one of the guys also that you got to look at now too is Stephen Ridley.
Yep.
He's looked good. He's looked fast. He's looked explosive. Guy's only 28 years old, so and not too far removed from having a season there with New England Patriots. Remember that game back in 2012? He absolutely caught the Broncos to pieces. So, that's another guy you got to add into the fold. And it's really unfortunate for Devontae Booker. Right, the guy was not healthy last year. For anyone who doesn't know, he was still dealing with that knee and it hurt the shoulders. He couldn't be as physical, so we didn't necessarily see the Devontae Booker that I think a lot of people expected, especially the Broncos. And I think, from all accounts, he was looking really nice here in the spring. So it's very unfortunate for him, but it does open the door for some of these other guys like D'Angelo Henderson, like a Juwan Thompson to possibly make this team. And I think Henderson's going to be a lock to make this team, no doubt about it. I think Juwan's got some fight to do.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to see how it plays out. We're just 11 days away from preseason opening with Denver taking on Chicago. I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, it's a good competitive matchup. We get to see what some of these young guys can do. Obviously, we're going to see some work from Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, the ones. I'd imagine maybe defensively some of the starters will probably see limited reps all preseason to preserve health, like guys like Von Miller. I think Derek Wolfe with his latest stinger incident with his shoulder, it's something he always gets every year. I think they may limit them in what they do in preseason just to save them for week one, because if we don't, I remember a few years ago when Denver played Seattle, Derek Wolfe had that very scary kind of neck injury, shoulder injury, stinger kind of related type injury that really it held him out for a while, and it was kind of a scary situation. So you don't want to see a guy like that who's so important, who just signed to an extension a couple years ago. You don't want to see a guy like that potentially get hurt in preseason, something that's kind of meaningless for veterans that already have a lock on the spot. But obviously, one thing I want to get to, and we'll reach out to some Twitter people, some people on Twitter right now listening. After we get back from commercial break, we'll answer some questions on air. But before that, let's talk about what everybody in Denver wants to talk about right now, and that's the quarterback play. You got Trevor Siemian, you got Paxton Lynch. Trevor Siemian was a starter last year. Paxton Lynch stepped in 2 games while Siemian was hurt last year, and I'd say Paxton showed some flashes. Obviously, the game he struggled the most in was Jacksonville. I didn't agree with really much of the play calling that game, and for Paxton, I think he had to overthink a little too much in that game. But he stepped up against Tampa Bay to finish out the game, had a nice rocket throw to Demaryius Thomas, and he was slinging the ball. And then obviously against the Falcons, he struggled with pressure and scrambling right a bit, but he had some good throws in there. So there are a lot of intangibles in the mechanics that we see from Paxton Lynch. But, obviously there's Trevor Siemian, too, who's knocking on the door because he was, in turn the starter last year. So he has the opportunity to prove himself. I'd imagine we see Trevor Siemian start week 1 in preseason, and then obviously maybe Paxton Lynch start week 2 of preseason. But I do see them rotating every series, him and Lynch every series for the first couple of preseason games during the first half. That's the only way I can see quarterback competition playing out between these two guys. What are your thoughts on the quarterback play so far that you've seen?
Well, past couple hasn't been a lot. I mean, they haven't done a whole heck of a lot. Whereas the first couple days, it was clearly Paxton Lynch out in the lead. Guy looked hands and for night and day difference from what we've seen, what we last saw in Jacksonville. Trevor struggled a little bit past the first couple days, even with some of those short throws that he kind of made his living on last year. There was some inaccuracy. Come back to day 3, Siemian was taking some shots down the field, connecting, and had a pretty darn good day. Past 2 days since the pads have come on, it's really been the defense, guys. Cracks haven't done a heck of a lot. It looked a little bit better today, starting out. Lynch had a nice move the ball period. After a struggle on first down, he had a couple nice throws there in a row and moved the chains a couple times, which was really nice to see. But then it came down to the 7-on-7 red zone work, and Lynch throws back-to-back picks. So it's just really hard to you can't put either one of them really out in front. And I've always said, in pretty much every article I've ever wrote, I think if it's close and anywhere near close, it's going to be Paxton Lynch starting against the LA Chargers week 1. Just due in part to the fact that, if you don't have somebody that's head and shoulders above you, you got to see what this kid can do because the intangibles are there. Definitely the intangibles are there. What are your thoughts, Cody?
You know what? When I was thinking about it and I read it, I absolutely agree. I do believe that if it's close at any point, it has to go to the guy you invested a first round. You took in the first round. You traded up to get in the first round. You have to obviously see what that investment can do. And I think that Paxton Lynch is more comfortable in this system. And obviously working with a guy like Musgrave who's developed Derek Carr into a phenomenal quarterback, a guy who, if you would have told me 2 years ago would be where he's at now, I'd say you're kidding me. But Musgrave has done a tremendous job. Musgrave, a Grand Junction native, actually, where I live. He went to the high school that I actually coached football at. He was a Golden Helmet winner as a quarterback, him and his brother. So that's actually cool. I hope one day he actually comes back, maybe this season, to give back to his community, his school, since he's close by now. But I do think Paxton Lynch, obviously, if it is close, he takes it. Trevor Siemian, the only way I can see Trevor Siemian taking the quarterback spot and solidifying it is if he starts taking those chances. And what I mean by that, he has to be comfortable with taking a deep shot every once in a while. Obviously, you want to play it safe as a quarterback, but you don't want to play it too safe to where, like you said, the common brag on Trevor Siemian was on 3rd and 9. He'll throw a 4-yard out route, and it's short of the stick. So usually on a 3rd and 9,
which we saw yesterday.
yeah, you know, and that's something that most fans, most people who coach quarterbacks, who watch football understand that you got to get, if it's a 3rd and 9, most DBs will play at the sticks, so you either have to attack the sticks or you go a little bit beyond the sticks on 3rd down. We got to see more of that, and it sounds like Paxton Lynch in training camp is taking some of those chances, is taking a deep shot, and obviously I'd say the praise that I've heard of Paxton Lynch is that he's been able to fire the ball in between two defenders consistently on the field, which, in my opinion, gives him the advantage ahead of Trevor Siemian in the quarterback race right now.
Yeah, I mean, if they had to play a game and make a decision today, it would be Paxton Lynch. And I think that I just don't see what Trevor has done at this point to show that he should beat out that first-round pick. The thing with Lynch that we're seeing is just the consistency. You see him have 2 or 3 really good series in a row, and then it goes right back to just looking like a knucklehead out there, not knowing what he's doing, making a poor read, making a poor throw. So I think the only way that improves is with reps, is with playing in those games and getting that live action. But here's the kicker with Lynch, and this is something we haven't really been able to see in camp. Lynch isn't all that comfortable moving through his progressions once it gets to the second and third read. He likes to tuck the ball and he likes to run. That may drive a coach crazy, but at the same time, it also adds an additional thing that a defense needs to be aware of. If you're asking me, would you rather have a 3-yard out from Trevor Siemian when there's nothing there and he takes the little underneath out, or would you rather have a 4 or 5-yard run from Paxton Lynch? I'm taking the run.
Yeah.
I want the defense off balance. I want to see how that opens things up for a player like Paxton Lynch to go out and make plays. And I think that's where Paxton Lynch is ultimately going to win the job is once it gets to those preseason games, once it's live and once people can hit him, you're going to see what this kid can do with his legs, because he can do a heck of a lot more with his legs than Trevor can. I think that's going to end up being the X factor.
Awesome. I absolutely agree with you. So, Steven, if you have a few more moments, we got to take a quick commercial break here. But when we come back, I want to answer some Twitter follower questions, as well as talk a little bit about who's got some fight in them at training camp if you have some time.
You bet. I got about one more segment in me.
Alrighty, sounds good. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back here live on the Predominantly Orange podcast, joined by my man Stephen Kriz over at Predominantly Orange. Like I said earlier, we're going to get the roundtable going here on the Predominantly Orange podcast going forward. It's going to be exciting. We're going to have everybody on here, but we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
This is iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio makes you want to move.
When you have a great melody, a song lasts
Forever. Instantly connected.
I love it when the beat goes.
iHeartRadio is the way I get to you.
The biggest song, the biggest artist.
All in one place.
iHeartRadio.
I'll see you there.
The 4 of us, we never missed a game. Then life, jobs, kids, new cities. It was time we got back together. A few minutes of NFL ticket exchange, and we were set. 4 100% authentic, real deal tickets to the Niners. From one fan to another. There's nothing better than this.
No place like home. Get your tickets today at NFL.com.
Coach's Corner podcast is brought to you by CodyWork18.com, and the show is now on iHeartRadio. Download the iHeartRadio app and search for the Coach's Corner podcast with Cody Rourke to listen to past, present, and future episodes of the show. All right, welcome back to Predominantly Orange Podcast. This is your host, Cody Rourke. We're here joined by Predominantly Orange staff member Stephen Kriz, who's been out at training camp for the Denver Broncos the last several days. Got to soak in a lot of the stuff. Stephen, I noticed you were at an event this morning. Tell us a little bit more about what you're able to see this morning at the event that the Broncos held before training camp.
Well, that was a fun event. USAA and the NFL have partnered up with the Broncos. Been doing this now since 2012, and they hosted just a slew of military members do kind of a boot camp. They were putting them through the 40 drill and the vertical jump and the gauntlet, pass and catch, and it was just a real fun event to see these active military members out there doing all this stuff. And one of the funny things, I was chatting with one of the guys from the Marines, and I was like, wow, this really gives you a good a good understanding of just how incredible these NFL athletes are. I think the top 40 time here with these military members was a 4.8. You got offensive linemen running that, which is just unbelievable.
You wonder if it can open up a potential opportunity for them to join the team at some point with that kind of speed. That's a cool event. So being able to get part of that as well. You also mentioned a couple weeks ago you were able to attend a little event that Trevor Siemian held at Dick's Sporting Goods, where he bought some kids some football equipment, some stuff. You got to talk to him after that. How was that experience, and what did you gain from that? Just seeing Trevor Siemian, outside of football, but within the community. What was that like?
Oh, guys, that was fun. Trevor's a really cool guy. Witty, kind of got that dry sense of humor. I think he learned a little bit of that from Peyton Manning, and that was a cool event. Trevor was genuinely having a good time with the kids. They brought out the Pee Wee football players and basically surprised them all with a shopping spree, $150. So seeing him interact with the kids and stuff was really cool. And I got to talk to Trevor a little bit. Just a super nice guy, and it was very fun.
In the nature of the NFL and the business, we always root for the nice guys, but in the NFL where competition at quarterback in every position is such a prime thing, the nice guys can't always win, unfortunately. So we'll see. I'm very eager to see how the quarterback, battle plays out. But before I let you go, I want you to give me 3 bold predictions that you have for the Denver Broncos this season, and then I'll talk about them as soon as we go off air.
3 bold predictions. I don't know how bold it is, but Garrett Bolt's absolutely going to be your starter at left tackle there, and probably will be for the next 10 years. See here. Shane Ray will come back and have a double-digit sack here. Even with the injury, I believe he will absolutely. He was looking very pathetic before the injury. And I believe if he's going to be back by week 2 at the latest, he'll easily hit double-digit sacks. And the Broncos are going to win 11 games this year.
Boom.
That's the number I'm falling on with what I've seen out here in camp. I think the offense is going to run the ball a lot better than they have the past couple of years. I think Paxton Lynch is going to be the starting quarterback, and I think he's going to make plays. And I think we're going to have some ups and downs, but I think 11 wins is going to be the number. And if that doesn't get the division, we'll easily get that first wild card spot.
Absolutely, and the AFC West has become a lot tougher. One thing before I let you go real quick, I want to ask you, last year the Denver Broncos struggled predominantly in the run department. Do you think that's shored up this year? I'm hearing great things about Domata Peko, and even Todd Davis is having a pretty good camp from what I'm told, but the defensive line, that's a question mark that many people are asking. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's hard to tell so far because we haven't, again, just like the running back evaluation, these guys can't knock them on their butt right now. They can't take these guys to the ground. So until we see that, it's going to be really hard to tell. But I think Peko's out there. He's looked good. He's obviously a big body. Zach Kerr is a big body. I think we're gonna, he's gonna make a name for himself this year. We obviously got Derek Wolfe, who, we might not see him a whole lot, like you mentioned, in preseason, but I think once the season starts, he'll be good to go. So the run game should be improved, the run defense. And it would really surprise me if they struggled the way they did last year. And one other thing that I'll point out about the run defense is it can get better even without the personnel getting a whole lot better if the offense can just put some points on the board and force these guys to throw it in the no-fly zone, because the no-fly zone looks incredible as always.
Absolutely. They've had a great start to the camp. Chris Harris Jr. had a quote yesterday that stood out. When it came to the offense and the quarterbacks, he said they wanted to drag him out into deep water and drown him. They still love him at the end of the day. I love that mentality. It's all about competition. But, I appreciate you very much, Steve, for jumping on here, giving us your thoughts, your analysis, your recap of training camp on this beautiful Monday afternoon in Colorado. Be sure, everybody, to follow Steven on Twitter at SCrizPO and catch all of his writings, his articles, and analysis over at predominantlyorange.com. He has a lot of great content. We have a great staff over there at predominantlyorange.com, and we appreciate all your interactions, though. So, Steven, I appreciate you for joining me here today on the Predominantly Orange podcast. I look forward to having you on in the future.
You bet. Thanks a lot for having me. We'll do it again soon.
Awesome. That's Steven Criz, Predominantly Orange, over there on the podcast, joining me here today. He was at training camp today, and from the sound of it, he was very excited. What he saw a lot of good stuff from it. I'm excited. So, let's take a look at it. Obviously, we talked a lot about quarterback, running back. It's hard to evaluate truly really what anybody's going to do in positions like for quarterbacks, 7-on-7. It's hard to truly evaluate how a quarterback's going to react based on a 7-on-7 where there's no pressure, no pass rush. There's really no element to that besides there's a 4-second threshold where quarterbacks can have the ball before they got to get rid of it. No pass rush, obviously no pressure. That's hard to evaluate a quarterback. It's hard to evaluate receivers on that element too, especially for defenses. But it sounds like the no-fly zone for the secondary is flying around and making plays at Denver Broncos training camp. Joe Woods, defensive coordinator, his first year, taking over for the legendary Wade Phillips, who has gone to the Los Angeles Rams. He's reunited with Kayvon Webster over there, and they have a pretty young defense over there. They have a lot of energy. I always thought that they had a lot of talent, honestly, looking at that roster and watching All or Nothing, where they followed the Rams around all season. They have a lot of young, talented playmakers. They just didn't execute, and they gave up a lot of big plays. You can't give up big plays, especially on the opposite side of the ball. I felt like the Rams' defense is pretty good, but they struggled in areas where pretty much everybody else could stop their offense, and the defense would remain on the field for so long. It kind of reminded me of the Denver Broncos offense last year, the year before, being on the field too long against good teams that can throw the ball and run the ball when you're tired on defense. Anytime you have over 65-plus snaps as a defense on the field, there's a problem. There's an issue there. But I think that the Denver Broncos' future looks bright. I think the D-line's beefier. Inside linebackers will have the ability. Brandon Marshall's healthy. Todd Davis has a year of starting under his belt. He's a little more comfortable. Will still be pushed for competition by guys like Corey Nelson, Zaire Anderson. I think it's very exciting going forward. Obviously the Denver Broncos kick off preseason action in just 11 days against the Chicago Bears on the road in Chicago. We've seen that matchup before, obviously, reunited going up against John Fox, a guy he's the most conservative coach you'll ever meet. If he could take a knee on defense, he absolutely would. But I'm a little salty over that, especially after that divisional game against the Baltimore Ravens, taking the knee. Even after giving up the Jacoby Jones catch, the Raheem Moore nightmare flashback, I still wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweats regarding that. Very rough indeed. But what I'm most excited about for the Denver Broncos this year is just seeing what a new offense with a system like Mike McCoy's, with guys that their talents are fit to that offense, a defense where everybody's still there. There's a lot of depth, a lot of energy, a lot of veteran leadership there. It's going to be hard to beat the Denver Broncos alone based off their defense. Now, if you add in an offense that can actually put up points, and you have this defense that continues to hold opponents to less points, that bodes very, very well for the Denver Broncos' hopes of going to Super Bowl 52. So I'm very excited as well about that. But catch my staff over at Predominantly Orange. I am very blessed to write with such an amazing group of guys who are avid lovers of the Denver Broncos and the sport of football. Very unbiased coverage. They give it how they see it. And sometimes that's perfect. That's what you need. That's what you need. You need that edginess when it comes to covering sports. So I'm blessed to have a very great group of guys that I'm able to write with and work with and talk to on a daily basis over at Predominantly Orange. So head over to predominantlyorange.com right now, and obviously you're going to see the latest recap from training camp as well as news, analysis, and much more from the great staff over at Predominantly Orange. And if you missed it at the top of the hour, this is changing from the Coach's Corner podcast to the Predominantly Orange podcast, joined by the great group of guys that I write with that, I've been working with ever since January, led by my man Ty Walden, Sarah Bedringer. I'm very, very excited about these guys. They're a great group of guys that I've had nothing but respect for when I wasn't writing. And then one day I was like, you know what, I'm really interested in bringing my analysis as a football coach, a guy who knows the sport in and out, loves the Broncos, loves football. I want to bring that to the table, and they gave me an opportunity, and they're the best guys I've ever worked with in pretty much anything I've ever done in my life. So, great group of guys. You can follow Steven, who's just on the Predominantly Orange podcast, on Twitter, at SKrizPO. Follow him. Follow Sarah at SAYRE Bettinger. Okay, he's the man. Cameron Parker, I'm going to have him on as well. Brad, the Brad father. And I have him on as well. Got a great group of guys over there, Predominantly Orange. Go over there. Be sure to follow us all on Twitter. Follow the account at Predominantly Orange on Twitter. And then we're going to have more guys tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day on the Predominantly Orange podcast, brought to you by DDP Yoga. I do it every single day because I had an ACL operation, and I was facing to have another reconstructive surgery because of stiffness in my leg. I discovered DDP Yoga through Talk is Jericho, Chris Jericho's podcast. Reached out to DDP and said, look, what could this do for me? I was facing another operation within 2 months if I couldn't get my flexion, my extension down on my leg after an ACL surgery. And sure enough, it broke up the scar tissue. Got me where I needed to be. So DDP Yoga. Head on over to ddpyoganow.com. Download the app. Subscribe if you want to change your life. I tell you what, there are a lot of amazing stories out there for DDP Yoga and what it's done for people like myself or people who are at a point in their life where, like, I need to make some changes, lifestyle changes, whether it be exercise, eating right, or motivation. He does a lot of that great stuff. He's got a cooking show on there, recipes, and Motivational Mondays. I look forward to that. It wakes me up with a heavy metal ringtone, da-da-da-da. And I'm all ready to go. DDP Yoga. Head over there to ddpyoga.com if you want to get the app DDP Yoga Now in your app store. And then contact DDP at RealDDP on Twitter if you have any questions. And then follow me on Twitter at Cody Rourke PO. If you want to be on the show as a Denver Broncos fan, sports fan, avid listener, if you want to be on to talk sports, Broncos, whatever, tweet me. Send me a message on Twitter. Direct message me or tweet me publicly if you want to be on. I'd love to have you on. Love to gain that opinion. I don't like talking by myself for 37 to 40 minutes to an hour of a show. I like having people on. I like hearing other people's opinion and perspective. It's a great platform to debate, to agree with, whatever it may be. So, this is your host, Cody Rourke, with the Predominantly Orange podcast, a group effort brought to you by the staff of Predominantly Orange at predominantlyorange.com. This is training camp, Monday. Broncos training camp recap on this beautiful Monday day in Colorado, across the globe, United States of America. We're heard worldwide. We got listeners in Egypt. Oh, yeah. I got to go there one day. Back home in the motherland, Ireland, where I'm from. We're there. We got your latest, up-to-date Broncos news, coverage, and analysis every single day, 24/7, on the Denver Broncos as well. This is your host, Cody Rourke. Thank you for tuning in to the Predominantly Orange podcast. We'll catch you tomorrow.